Hello there, good afternoon and Happy New Year if we are still allowed to say that in May. My name is Ben Feasy and this is the first episode of a new series of Cricket and Cocktails. We've got a relatively new look England squad that's been announced for the first test against New Zealand at Lord's, which starts on June the 4th. And we've also got plenty of new faces to look at in the England Lions squad. They're in a two-match series against South Africa A, which starts at Arundel on Friday. But I'm not going to be discussing all of that by myself. That would be fairly pointless. So I've spoken to my cricketing chums Alan Bone and Ben Kosky for their thoughts on who they believe should be in the England 11 for that Lord's Test match. And then I'm going to have a wider discussion about the England cricket team with my other cricketing chums, Adam Williams and Dan Whiting. So let's get to it. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Dan. Now, as we all know, usually a thumping defeat in the Ashes series over the course of a previous winter does have a proven track record in heralding sweeping changes in the England team. And we've got some change afoot, one could argue, looking at the England squad and the England Lions squad, who, of course, are going to start playing South Africa in Arundel in a couple of days. But at the same time, we've got a captain, a coach, and a managing director that are all still in post. So where do you think this team is at the moment? Are there changes afoot, or is it, at the risk of being cynical, a little bit of window dressing? I'll start with you, Adam, and then I'll bring you in, Dan.
Well, I think as the phrase goes, isn't it? Well, some things change, a lot of things stay the same. And I think that's really probably the best way that you can describe the situation that we find ourselves in here on the eve of this series. I think the proof will be really in firstly who lines up as the 11 in that first test match next week, and also how the new faces or the newer faces and some of the returning faces perform really. I think there's lots of things to be excited about there, particularly as I'm sure we'll come on to in more detail. Emilio Gay getting selected and opening the batting alongside Ben Duckett. The return of Ollie Robinson, I think, is an intriguing one. Rayan Ahmed as well, getting selected in the squad, presumably to probably bat at number 8 and be the frontline spinner. But there's some continuity there as well. And I think while there's a combination of a few raised eyebrows and a few question marks maybe over some of those players who perhaps didn't deliver on their full potential over the winter, there are some rewards, I think, for those who have shown that they are prepared to knuckle down, go away and do the hard work. I'm thinking particularly of Ben Duckett, who made that decision not to go to the IPL this year and to stay at home with Nottinghamshire, get some runs under his belt, get himself into some sort of form. I think you can be a little bit optimistic about what's around the corner, but also at the same time be a little bit cautious.
I'd like to pick up on what you said about Ben Duckett. Dan, Duckett has scored runs for Nottinghamshire this summer, but he wasn't great down under against Australia, against quick bowlers with certainly a couple of those pitches, Perth and Brisbane, it would be fair to say, were fairly quick pitches. And he'll probably get a bit more of the same in South Africa this coming winter. Is Duckett a little bit fortunate to be there, Dan?
I mean, who else is there? Who else is there opening the batting? That's the problem. But the ECB have been the princes of procrastination, haven't they? I mean, they had these sort of, this review, and they were going to look into it. Nothing happened. Then they needed a selector. Luke Wright said he was stepping down in January. It's taken until May for them to appoint Marcus North. So it seems like everything's sort of moving very slowly. And I think English cricket fans they want some answers, because that was a really poor tour. It was poor in preparation, but it was poor also in performance. And yeah, I think English cricket fans need some sort of quick answers and some sort of quick decisions as well.
It was an interesting appointment, Marcus North, who you mentioned there. I mean, there can't be that many overseas players that have played for as many first-class cricket counties. In fact, there can't be any overseas players that have played for as many first-class counties as Marcus North has over a 10-year period. So there are some credentials there as far as an affinity with English county cricket is concerned. But we've just got through 6 rounds of the county championship. He's only just come in. We're about to go into T20 mode before we get back onto the county championship horse in June. So is this a little bit late? What input could he possibly have had in picking this squad for Lords.
Maybe there's a little bit of smoke and mirrors going on in the background, I think, over this appointment, in the fact that possibly for contractual reasons and gardening leave periods or what have you with his predecessor, that they weren't actually allowed to officially announce that he was in post and had been appointed per se until that squad came out. Although looking at it, it appears he was still doing his other day job at Durham in the meantime. But I think from what I've heard, he has actually had his fingerprints over the last few months, and certainly over this selection, even if it hasn't officially been tagged to his name until the day that it came out on the presses. And I think it's a healthy appointment from my perspective, because not only is he currently in the game, he's been a director of cricket with Durham for the last few years. There's been some success and a little bit of setback there.
Dan, one of the criticisms that we've had in the past, particularly in the wake of the Ashes defeat, and actually Ben Kosky did mention this last winter, there was a bit of a disconnect between the England team and high performance within the county game, which traditionally has been the bedrock of English selection. Do you think there's a bit of an issue there? Because yes, okay, Marcus North has come in, but does it feel a lot like we're picking people on hunches?
Possibly, yeah. I think Marcus, though, I know him a little bit, and the character that he is, he would have actually said, "I want some sort of input into my picks here. I don't just want to be a patsy." And Emilio Gay is definitely one of his picks, without a shadow of a doubt. Emilio Gay's had a very good county championship. I think he's
Yes.
got two, possibly 300s already this season.
And his colleague is in the
Um,
Lions, isn't he, Ben McKinney?
yeah, I saw one of them actually from Emilio Gay at Durham, first game of the season covering Kent, and he looked on a different plane to anyone else. He was fantastic. Sonny Baker as well, he's had a decent county championship, he's had a decent start. So I think that hopefully they will look on the county championship as, the finishing school for the test side, which is what it should be.
Well,
It's
yeah,
much
but
maligned.
Darren Lehman did make what I thought was a fair comment about the perceived disconnect between England and county cricket. He said that last season he never saw a selector in his official capacity as coach of the Northants side. Is that going to change now? Because we haven't really
Well,
seen selectors at the county grounds yet, have we?
No, well, hopefully. I mean, Marcus North knows the county game inside out from his time at Durham, and as you said, he's played for Gloucestershire, he's played for Durham, he's played for God knows who else. So he does know the county game inside out. But I've covered 75 days of cricket for the last 3 years, and I've never seen Luke Wright. And you see people on the circuit, don't you? You see people around, and you see people, floating around. And I've never seen Luke Wright. I've never ever seen him. And that was covering Surrey as well, who are, probably number one. They're the centerpiece in the shop window, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. There can't be too many better run clubs. Certainly can't be too many wealthier clubs, not only in this country, but in most countries. I do notice on the subject of Surrey, you're both going with Jamie Smith as your keeper, aren't you? That's an interesting case. We've had 6 rounds of the county championship. He's played the first three on the strength of his batting alone, and he's kept wicket in the last three. And in the last three, if you look at his numbers, he's not really scored that many runs. So my question to both of you, is Jamie Smith there for the long haul, or do you think there's a route in for James Rew?
Well, I think he's there, similar to what Dan just said there about Ben Duckett and the opening berth, because there isn't really anybody else at the moment who I think is pushing to fill those gloves, for want of a better expression, in the balance of the side that they're looking to try and pick. Now, I mulled over that when I did my selection, because I like James Rew. Every time I see him play, I'm more and more impressed with him as not only a keeper, but also a batter, and the way that he goes about himself and the way that he carries himself. But at the minute, I think there's a little bit of confusion here about what they actually want to try and do with James Rew and how they want to try and get him in this side, because they've clearly asked Somerset to give him the opportunity to open in a game, and that didn't
Yes.
work earlier this season. He has given his best returns in first class cricket, batting either at number 3 or in the middle order. But as the state of this England side at the moment, I don't really see why you would pick him to bat at number 7, because I don't really feel that's the best use of his skills in an England side. If you're going to pick him and give him the gloves, then you probably got to stick him in the top 5. And Jamie Smith is there because for some reason this current England setup does not seem to want to pick the best keeper in the country by a country mile in Ben Folkes. And I know he's injured anyway at the minute anyway, because he foolishly injured himself bowling against Essex a few weeks ago. But if he was fit, for me, he would be in the side every week without question. But Jamie Smith gets another go, but for how long, I think remains to be seen.
And of course, if Folkes was fit, there has to be a possibility, Dan, that he wouldn't have kept wicket in those last 3 rounds for Surrey anyway.
No, he possibly wouldn't. No, I don't think Jamie Smith had that bad at all.
His keeping was good in Australia, I thought.
He was competent. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he was that bad. Going back to Rue, it's interesting about sort of being no spaces in the top 5 for him, because Jofra Archer hasn't been picked on this because he's been in the IPL,
Yeah,
but so is Jacob Bethel. And Jacob Bethel, I think, is very lucky to be, to have kept his place here if they're going on that basis. So, as you say, there's not sort of real consistency in selection. But James Rue's credentials, his time will come. But I don't agree with you on Ben Folkes being the best keeper in the country, Adam. I'm going to go for John Simpson. I've seen a lot of them both, and I think they're both very good keepers. It's like the days when England used to have Peter Shilton and Ray Clements, and at the moment we're picking Joe Corrigan, aren't we? It's just one of those things, isn't it? And we haven't picked the best keeper for a number of years. I think, since possibly Alex Stewart took the gloves off Jack Russell. I'm not sure that we've ever done this. It's one of those things that we sort of try and balance, don't we?
Let's move on to other things in the side. You've made the point that Jofra Archer's not in the squad. He's in the IPL. The IPL running its full course carries on until the end of this month, until the end of May. Yet Jacob Bethel is also in the IPL and he is in the squad. So is that something to do with the rest and rotation of a fast bowler, that Archer is in the IPL, yet he's not in the squad? And Bethel is a batter and a slow left arm spinner rather than the fast bowler. So he can pretty much get off the tarmac and straight over to Lords.
That's just one game in the IPL these days, isn't it? They take going on till the end of May. They seem to take forever, don't they? It's not a 3-hour job anymore, is it? The IPL. I think you're probably right. I think it is the difference between a bowler and a batter. Who knows? Who knows?
There has to be a concern that we'll have the risk of a little bit of burnout for Bethel. And you want players that are fully confident and match fit. And I'm not sure with the bat. And as a keeper, Jamie Smith, for example, is fully confident and match fit. And this is a really good New Zealand side. There's loads of experience of English conditions, whether that's with the full New Zealand side or with county cricket or with a combination of the two. They've got some good young players coming in and they'll be able to learn off those most experienced guys that are in the squad that have been out in England before. Adam, are we slightly at risk of underestimating this New Zealand team? How often have we even talked about it leading up to this test series?
Yeah, I think we are at risk of underestimating them, because you look through the names that they've selected there, and there is a clear core of players who have been in that side, that test side for them for the last sort of 4 or 5 years, and they've built themselves particularly around being pretty strong, not just at home, but also don't forget that it wasn't that long ago that they won a series in India 3-0. And, I look down the names that are in their squad at the minute, and you see people like Rachin Ravindra, who obviously is also in
Wonderful.
the IPL, but great player. Devon Conway knows his game very well. Daryl Mitchell, always very dependable, alongside Henry Nichols as well. And then that's even before I've got onto the sort of battery of seam bowlers that they have there, who quite a lot of them have had stints in county cricket in recent years. I'm thinking particularly of Matt Henry, who's
Yeah,
hoovered up
played
wickets
loads
for
for
fun in
Somerset.
county cricket. Exactly. For a variety of counties. They've got to be careful there. And New Zealand's record in recent summers, while on paper doesn't look great, but if you cast your minds back to that series they played here, the first summer of Bazball, for want of a better expression, they might have lost that series 3-0, but they were in all three of those Test matches at long periods, and England had to chase down big fourth innings totals in two of those games, and a bit of a nervy chase in the corresponding fixture at Lords.
And they're an exciting team as well. I mean, any side with Kane Williamson, Glenn Phillips is another one as well who can get the scoreboard ticking over at a rate of knots. I know Glenn from his time at Gloucestershire, and he's a good man, but he's a wonderful cricketer as well, and he's a brilliant fielder. He's possibly one of the best fielders in the world. So, yeah, they're an exciting side. They've got the ability to sort of get behind the ball and grind it out if they need to. You know, people like Henry Nichols, etc. I think we are underestimating them. I don't think much has been spoken about them, but that's New Zealand all over, isn't it? They
Yeah.
go under the radar. They're like stealth.
Yeah, the little brother on the other side of the Tasman Sea. Yes. Now, in terms of keeping runs ticking over and trying to prevent that, I think it would be fair to say in Australia last winter, England's new ball bowling was generally quite expensive. So you can see the logic behind bringing Ollie Robinson back into the side. I saw him bowl almost every delivery when Sussex were down at Taunton. I was on duty doing Sussex versus Somerset, and he didn't go for many, but he bowled in quite short spells, and that was probably under instruction from England to keep him fresh for the Test series. But is he really among the best bowlers in the world, as Rob Key said the other day? What do you think, Adam?
Not quite sure I'd put him quite in the as big an echelon as Kesey did there with that quote, but I think he was clearly looking for a way to pump up his tyres. Really, I think it's been well documented what Ollie's struggles have been off the pitch since his last Test appearance, and the reason why he was left out of the team after that. Ollie's an interesting one, really, because I've followed his career relatively closely since he came for the Kent age groups originally, because he was playing club cricket for the same team in the league that I was playing for back then. And Paul Farbrace is his stepfather now as well, and I've got to know Farby over the years covering the game for whichever county he's been working with. So I've always kept a close eye on how Ollie's sort of career has gone in a very interesting sort of trajectory like that, up and
Yeah,
down, various
peaks and troughs. Yeah.
undulations. It's interesting to see, since he's been given the captaincy at Sussex this season, that there's clearly, it looks like he's taken on that responsibility in the right way, and he's clearly reflecting that in both how he's going about his game and going about how he holds himself off the pitch as well. And that thing you mentioned there about him bowling slightly shorter spells, I think actually might have been a case before he even got selected in this squad, because I think he talked about it in an interview recently where since he's taken on board the captaincy, he's almost felt less obliged to bowl longer spells than he might have done previously. And actually that's probably the delicate balance you strike as a bowling captain, is knowing actually when you should be bowling yourself for a longer spell, and not sort of reining yourself in a little bit. I think he's got a great opportunity this summer in the conditions to just show us what he can do and show us how dependable and reliable he is.
Dan, your thoughts on
Yeah.
Ollie Robertson? Can he lead this attack bowling with Gus Atkinson, who presumably will come back if he's got through his concussion injury, and Josh Tongue? Is he the leader of the attack in waiting?
Yeah, I think Ollie Robinson is, and it's interesting, you know, how he's been given the captaincy. He's taken it over from John Simpson and Sussex. I think Farbrace wanted to give him the captaincy to actually give him that sense of responsibility, and he's responded well. He's had his problems over the years. I wouldn't say he's a troublemaker, but he's been perceived as being quite a difficult character, perhaps, in the dressing room at times. I hope that he's matured, and I hope that he can lead the attack. If England have a fit Ollie Robinson, all the better.
I'd like to have a look at the spin options. In my 11, these will all go up on a graphic, as I've said, over the course of the podcast. I won't cover your lovely faces, don't worry. I personally have gone for Rehan Ahmed as a spin option because I think he offers a bit more with the bat and potentially more with the ball, although he may go for a few runs, as leg spinners often do. And you're both going with Shoaib Bashir, who now does have the benefit of a county that actually plays him. He's taken a few wickets for Derbyshire, about 15, which is not bad on in 6 games on pitches that probably wouldn't have suited him that much. Do you think there'll be an upward trajectory for Shoaib Bashir now that he's got a regular employer and he actually is playing first class cricket?
I've gone for Rayan Ahmed actually, Ben, but I am pleased to see that Bashir is back in the squad, and I'm pleased to see that they have kept him in the fold, and that the move that he's made to Derbyshire looks to be working positively for both him and for the county and for England so far, because I do feel that they got in a right muddle in the winter about what to do with him, and how they didn't use him in the end. And I really do feel there is a player there, and I think that he is somebody who needs an arm around his shoulder. He needs the opportunity to be
It needs
told
to
that he
bowl.
can. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to work out for all parties. If he gets the nod next week, I wouldn't be averse to it. But I do think that Rayan Ahmed, as you say, offers a real all-round package with his ability to bat as well.
Your thoughts on Sherbashir, Dan, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I saw him the other week for Derbyshire against Kent. I thought he looked innocuous. I thought he was tidy enough. He didn't get whacked around the ground, but he wasn't particularly threatening. As you said, he needs to bowl. He needs a bit of love. A bit like me on a Saturday night, Ben. Needs a bit of love.
Careful, this is a
um,
daytime show, Dan.
yeah, exactly. Sorry, we're before the watershed. I'm not sure about Rehan Ahmed's bowling, if I'm honest with you. I think he's a far better batter than he is a bowler these days. I think his bowling's gone backwards. I don't think he really rips it like he used to when he was young. I'm not sure about his bowling these days. But that goes to show the state of English spin options at the moment, doesn't it?
I hate to be one of those sad middle-aged guys that talks about things being better in their day, but pitches in county cricket don't turn as often now as they did in the 90s, when you could pretty much guarantee in the second half of the season the Northampton pitches would turn. I mean, it really doesn't happen, does it?
No, it doesn't.
No.
And you look through. Actually, we might come on to it before we finish up the names who are in that Lions squad as well. That starts
Oh, yes,
again
we will
later
do
on
that.
this
Yeah.
week. You know that how many others are really sort of knocking down the door, demanding to be selected. I do feel a little bit for someone like Tom Hartley, who has had a taste of Test cricket before, and is clearly getting a little bit of trust this year under James Anderson's captaincy up at Lancashire. I do worry that perhaps he has fallen even further off the radar now. But really, you do rack your brains beyond that, don't you, about who else is really putting up a candidacy. Calvin Harrison, to bring it back to your Northants roots, Ben. He's someone I like the look of as well, because he's also
Yeah,
a decent batter as well. But how much do they really trust him as an option to potentially go on and take that opportunity?
Yeah, the other one's possibly Jack Carson as Sussex, but he's another one he plays regularly, but he's not really sort of putting his hand up and grabbing those sixes and seventhers to win Sussex the game. Maybe it's too early in the season. Maybe we don't play enough in August these days. I don't know. You're still hankering for the days of Monty and Jason Brown and Graham Swan, aren't you, Ben?
I am, but equally, I'm hankering for the days when spin bowlers have turning pitches to bowl on. And I would argue Surrey's a good example in the 90s, early 2000s, when Saqlain Mushtaq played for them. Those pitches would break up, the surface would break up, and he'd be in the game. I'd like to have a quick look at your thoughts on the England Lions squad. They start at Arundel in a couple of days, and then they're going to play at Beckenham. Presumably, that's where England believes the next generation lies. Dan, who do you think? Who are the names to watch out for? Who you believe are perhaps closest to the full England side in the event of one or two first choice people getting injured or losing form?
I like the fact they've gone for Alfie Ogborn. I've always liked him at Somerset. I know
Yeah,
being,
he
you
looked good
mentioned
last week.
Gloucestershire,
Yeah.
yeah, you're not supposed to say this. Ace of Tribes, another one. I covered the Lions last year, and Dan Mosley, he got a wonderful 100 at Canterbury, and he's a decent player. Ben Geddes, there's quite a few Bens in there. I'm surprised you haven't been picked, Mr. Feasy. But there's
Well,
Ben Geddes, Ben Mays, and Ben McGinney. Tom Laws, and the other one I really like the look of, who is probably not anywhere near the England side at the moment, but at Middlesex, Navia Sharma. I think he's from
he's very
Sudbury
promising.
Cricket Club.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
they've
saw
got
him
a
on
couple,
first
haven't
team
they? They've
debut.
got
Actually, I thought he looked good.
yeah, they've got who's the other one? Caleb Faulkner as
Caleb
well, and they've
Faulkner.
got
Yeah,
Middlesex have actually sort of got some good young talent, and you can see that with Tom Helm having to go out on loan to Leicestershire. I think there's sort of a few there who are possibly near the England side. One disappointment for me is that I feel that Ollie Price at Gloucestershire possibly deserves a go in that side as well. But
oh God, how good was he at
can't have it
Bristol last week on that that tricky hybrid surface as well.
He ground it out. I said he was
He
like
did.
Cliff Thorburn and his pomp, the grinder.
Yes, I'm just about old enough to remember him, Danny. That's fair enough. Now, obviously, briefly touch on the middle order. England's middle order, in spite of everything that's happened in the last few months, it pretty much picks itself. Once you get past the opener, it's almost unthinkable that Bethel wouldn't be there after his performance, after his wonderful 100 in Australia, and that Root and Brooke wouldn't be there. You could have the debate about whether Stokes plays at 6 or if you stick him in at 7 behind Jamie Smith as keeper batter. But I think they pretty much pick themselves, don't you? So it may be that the next cab off the rank will be when the time comes for one of those older people in the middle order. What do you think about that?
They're probably your first three names on the sheet, aren't they? 4, 5, 6, possibly 4 as well. Now that Bethel's sort of nailed down that position after Pope fell away in Australia, sadly. Again, it's a similar scenario. It's who else is there really banging the door down, scoring that weight of runs to say, no, I should be considered instead. There were some question marks, weren't there, during the Ashes and afterwards about Harry Brook and his kind of long-term role in this side. But I think you've got to try and build a team around players like that, they'll come off. And when they come off on a day, it's fantastic and it's spectacular.
I'm sure you'd agree, Dan. Not sure he's shown many captaincy credentials, even though he is officially England's vice captain. But Harry Brook's a phenomenal talent, is he not?
He's not bad with the ball in his hand either. As we saw the other day. He is a wonderful talent. For me, though, I think he's guilty of throwing it away a little bit too much for his talent. I'd like to see him go on and get those big scores more regularly rather than getting a flashy 40 and throwing it away.
Gentlemen, I'm going to thank you both for your time this afternoon. I'm briefly going to introduce the cocktail. Now, as you said last winter, Adam, it is 5 o'clock somewhere, so I'm going to nick that. We're going to go with that. So this is a mint julep. So it's got a very simple syrup. You boil water and sugar, you get a bit of bourbon in there. It's packed with ice, and it's got some mint and a silly straw just to look a little bit gaudy. So I'm going to say cheers to both of you. Thank you for your time, and we will reconvene after Lord's. That's a wrap for this episode of Cricket and Cocktails. Thank you for joining us. My thanks to Adam Williams and Dan Whiting for their input onto the podcast, and my thanks also to Alan Bone and Ben Kosky for their thoughts on the possible makeup of the England 11 for the Lord's Test match. I wonder which one of us has got that right. Well, I guess we'll find out soon, won't we? Also, a little bit of breaking news. Myself and Ben Kosky will be starting a new podcast series soon. We're provisionally going to be calling it 5 Guys Named Ben, but we're a bit held up in production at the moment because we just need to find 3 people by the name of Ben that are willing to work with us. But for the time being, goodbye.